Welcome back to another great episode of That Trucking Gospel. Jimie Sanchez is here to dive deep into the customer side of the business and help determine when to choose an asset and when to choose a broker.
Long horns on the hood and I'm still gripping wood, still tipping, baby, sitting sideways. Texas heat on the candy paint, in and out of county lanes, baby, I love to swing. Find me posted on the corner with a couple cold Coronas and some outlaws out today. When we started, we were sober, baby, it ain't even over. They gon' have to drag us out this place. Yeah, it's different down here, you know.
Jimie, thank you again for joining us on That Trucking Gospel. We really appreciate your time today. And I just really kind of wanted to start by just getting a little bit of your background, how you got in the industry, and just kind of tell the story of where you are and what you're doing today.
Yeah, definitely. So originally, I was supposed to be a weather girl. I was supposed to be a tornado chaser. And that obviously didn't happen, but I still do it as a passion. Love it. I was young. I needed a job and I needed a good job. I needed to start my future. So I ended up at Night Transportation and the job was a market manager. And I thought, okay, well, I have communications degree. I have, I'm going to be on camera. No, I thought I was going to be marketing something. No, what it was I was the person that was getting all the loads for the company at Night Transportation, right? And the first 6 months, I absolutely hated it. I was like, why am I here? Why am I in trucking? Why is there trucks around me? Why does everybody smell? I hated it. But after that 6 months, I realized I was really good at it. I loved it. And it blossomed from there. I ended up growing a huge passion for truck drivers. And I ended up becoming a planner, a dispatcher, and then the terminal ended up being mine. I was the terminal manager there. And I spent 7 years at Night Transportation. I won several awards being there. Fun fact, I was the only woman out of 32 terminals at that time. So that was pretty cool. But either way, that's where my career started. And I had a great mentor there. And if it wasn't for him believing in me, I don't know if I would have ever been in the trucking industry. But after that, though, I was still young. I wanted to expand my resume and go somewhere else with it. And so I wanted to go on the customer side because my biggest thing was when I was talking to a customer that the loads were late or we were trying to find another truck to deliver a load. And we were so scared to tell the customer the truth and just call them. I wanted to know that side of the business now. What are they going through on that side of the business that we're not seeing? So I went to that side. So I went to Amazon and I went to Amazon for 4 years. And at Amazon, I managed DFW. So I had over 23 facilities, managed over 67 carriers, and I was in charge of the on-time aspect of all of that, from facilities to carriers, also creating every USPS DDU route within 200 miles of DFW. That was great. It was a fun time. I understand now the other side of the aspect of what happens when a carrier doesn't pick up. After that, went to Pepsi. Pepsi was great. Did 2.5 years there. And I owned the state of Texas with Pepsi. I had the production facilities, 47 carriers, over 200 drivers, a P&L spend of $20 million. And was there for a while. Now I'm here with a new company called ClearJet, which is a new startup company that is amazing, I am so thankful to be a part of this because I'm building the transportation network for it. And this company is gonna take the parcel delivery by storm pretty soon. So that's where I'm at now.
That is awesome. So I could probably go out on a limb here and say that there's not many people in our industry that can say weather girl turned transportation across the United States. That's probably, so you talked about earlier being the only woman at Night Transportation running facilities. You're probably one of the only people that went weather girl into the seat that you are today too. So congratulations on that. That's
I also
pretty
got
awesome.
to use it with my truck drivers. I would call them and be like, hey, did you see the weather where you're at? Or I still do it with my friends or whatever, but my truck drivers, I was all about it. And I actually, fun story, Oh, and I called a truck driver and I told him, hey, you are in Salina, Texas. There's a tornado on the ground. No joke. As soon as that happened, he got swept up. Truck, everything. Swept up by a tornado when I was on the
Oh
phone with
my
him.
gosh.
Fun story. He was fine
That
though.
is
And he
crazy.
even said it.
Good,
Jimmy
good. I
called
was
me,
fixing to
told
ask.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, gave him a small, quick head start for sure.
Mhm.
Well, also, when you think about your resume and where you were and where you are now, I mean, man, this is what I'm really excited about this conversation today. Just kind of diving into the customer's aspect, the shipper side of it. You already said the term truth in transportation, which I use every single show, that transparency, and really diving into kind of the weeds, if you will, from a shipper's perspective. So you think about your time at night, understanding that side, moving on to Amazon and PepsiCo. I mean, I'm really excited to hear kind of some of the insight and stories and kind of the vision of some of those type shippers, from your perspective. So, first, just to kind of dive into the fact of your time at Amazon and Pepsi, what was the number one thing you took from night transportation to those seats that brought value? Like kind of understanding the carrier side and then now sitting on the shipper side. Like what, if people are listening and they're kind of asking that same question, like what do you value and what did you bring to that seat? Like what's some of the insight there just from a kind of a broad level, macro level, from your perspective?
I always say that one of the biggest thing that I bring to the table is that I know both sides of the story. Um, I know what it feels like to be on the trucking side and understand when something fails, that there are things out of our limits like weather, breakdowns, uh, even when truck drivers just don't show up to the job. There are things that happen. And I was able to take that to the other side and tell them, and I was very successful at Amazon. I ended up with a few awards as well for that and managing my carriers because I understood that piece. And, I would tell my carriers, look, I come from your business and I know this. Don't bullshit me. Tell me the truth. What happened? And they, and it always helped. And they say, Jimmy, this actually happened. Okay. At this point, I need you to do XYZ. When I had a carrier that was always breaking down, how many how many A and B services are you actually doing? That I would start actually speaking to them. But it has helped so much to have both aspects of the business in my career to be successful because I can actually help the trucking company as well as be successful with me. Because if you're winning and I'm winning, we're both winning. Same time, we're making money. And I've always been the biggest advocate for trucking companies of you're under my belt, we're going to succeed together. I'm going to give you all the tools, all the resources. If you don't take it, there's a problem. So
So what do you think, and I guess maybe I'll ask as a percentage, but what do you think from a provider standpoint, from a carrier to shipper, like do you feel the vast majority do try to lie to you and tell you some fluffed up story on why they fell instead of just saying, hey, the driver slept in, or you know they decided they didn't want to work today, or they actually did have a blowout, or they did have some type of maintenance issue? Do you feel it's more common to maybe fluff the story than just give the honest truth?
So it is very common for that to happen. But here's where I see I now don't have to deal with that part. I'm managing that part now. And so but the biggest thing that I train my people on and something that made me very successful in my role was from day one, you are having that meeting with them. This is who I am. I'm Jimmy, and this is how I work. You're going to help me. I'm going to help you. I don't want to hear bullshit. I don't want to hear your excuses. What I want to hear is the truth. So that when you give me the truth, you and I come up with with a solution because that's all we need is a solution. The more you tell me the truth, the more that I'm going to consistently always, recommend you as a carrier and be there for you. But you also have to do the part as well. You got to learn how to fix it. You have to come up to me and say, Jimmy, I have an action plan. XYZ is going to happen from here on out. And then if it does happen, I will always trust you from here on out. But if it doesn't, then I'm sorry. So, yes, there is fluffers, but also the relationship you carry with your carrier is very important. You have to be communicative and you have to be upfront.
Hey, let's take a quick break for a minute to say thank you to our sponsor, Unity Brokering, for this show today. Unity Brokering focuses on optimizing your supply chains, leveraging the relationships with their customers and their carriers. If you would like to get in contact with Unity, please email dispatch@unitybrokering.com. Let's get back to the show. And that kind of brings me to the next question, because, when you talk about like small to medium-sized shippers, that relationship, that transparency sometimes feels a little bit different, right? It's easier to build a great relationship with a very small to medium-sized company. When you get into those enterprise type shippers like, PepsiCo and Amazon and this, sometimes it feels like it's more difficult to build that ironclad relationship. So I appreciate you saying right here that relationship still matters, that transparency still matters. Even though I have a $2-3 billion spend in my overall transportation, I still need a relationship with every single carrier, every single provider that works for me. So with that being said, is that what you used to push to your team when you're in Texas? Like, hey, you got to build that relationship with these carriers or we're not going to be successful. Because at the end of the day, it's the end user, the end consumer, the customer themselves that potentially could lose if we don't have a good relationship and that speed to market and communication is there.
So I think if you notice something, every trucking company has gone to the point of um, service, customer service were the best. Every trucking company has gone that route. So as brokers, okay? And every other company, Pepsi, Amazon, everybody is customer centric. Number one, we need somebody to deliver our products. It's about the customer. So when you find a carrier that embodies the same thing, both internally and externally, it makes sense for both to be together.
So it kind of builds that culture outside of the walls each one of you work in. Like you have your
Yes.
walls that you work in. The provider has their walls they work in, but it's taking those two cultures and combining those to make it where the end user wins and gets it. So I that's exactly what we're trying to do as well. And so how does that look from your seat from a carrier, an asset-based company compared to a broker? So kind of how do you weigh those two when we're making decisions on when to choose a carrier or when to choose a broker?
Okay. So we're gonna get a little spicy here.
Like it.
When to choose a carrier or when to choose a broker. So I will be honest, and I am not a broker chooser, and I will never be. Um, the reason why is I think about the middleman and making money. And then I also want to, like I told you, I'm big on the people who are assets and they have their trucks. And I want to give that business to them. Now, I won't say that I don't use a broker though, because there are times where I had my 47 asset carriers not be able to respond to a load that I need picked up in 2 hours, you know, that were in our system because, there's the vetting system, there's that whole process. And so we have only those 47 carriers in Texas. Well, this broker is vetted and has more. That's when I'm going to use a broker when I'm like, okay, now I'm going to use them. But I know I said that me and brokers are not my favorite, but when I notice, and I'm going to be fair, when I notice a broker is doing very well, and if any broker that I work with sees this, they're going to say it, I will bring you on. And there's a particular broker that I still to this day work with based out of Dallas that for the last 8 years, they've been with me because they've never failed me. And so but it becomes the relationship you build, the communication you keep with those people, and what you lay out beforehand and how strong you are with them. You can't be weak with these people. You got to be strong.
Right. Especially in
Yeah.
transportation. So let me ask you a question then. if you lean and I don't want to put a percentage on anything for you, so just tell me if I'm wrong here, but if you put 90% weight on an asset-based carrier and 10% weight on a broker, using them where they fit in, but you also said you have a relationship with the broker you've used for 8 years, so kind of pivoting back to that relationship, is that broker you're using today because of the relationship and the culture and the execution and the communication and everything that you're talking about? So you put a carrier and a broker on the same scale. Like
Yep.
these are my expectations and you have to meet them.
Yeah. So that broker that I love is now my carrier. Now I don't see him as a broker. I see him as my carrier because they have literally fulfilled everything that I needed. I've worked with so many companies, and I don't want to name names, that have failed me left and twice, which is why I don't deal with brokers. But if you can get a load and you can literally execute it solidly with communication, we everybody will be good with that, because in the world of brokers, within customers, like big customers, if you notice, big customers are doing away with brokers. And like Pepsi, they're doing away with brokers. Amazon was done in 2018 with brokers. It's there's a reason why. And you have those people that come out here that see money, and that they're like, oh, and they double broker. They don't care about the load. They don't understand what it means to actually be in transportation, which is why brokers have a bad name. But then you do have your one-offs that are amazing. And I give credit to those, because that's when I take them with me, and I want them to stay in my book of business forever.
And that's one thing that, for me in this platform that I would love to continue to have a conversation around and help debunk. Cause, I'd be lying to you if I sit here and said that the majority of the brokers, the whole attitude of the bad kid ruins it for everybody, or the bad broker ruins it for everybody. I feel like that's what's happened. Is you have a core group that just are in it for the money. They're double brokering. They're just doing everything they can to make a buck, and it's not sustainable, right? That's why in COVID you had a huge uptick of broker
Yeah.
authorities, because everybody wanted to go do it. You saw a big uptick on drivers falling off, bad service, bad communication, just making the buck. And then what happens is it's a revolving door. As soon as they get a bad name, they throw it away and they go get a new authority and do it all over again. And that's not sustainable. That's not the type of business that we're trying to build here at Broker. So it's unfortunate for guys in like Robert, that starts a brokering company, and it's like, well, brokers have a bad name. It's almost like a cuss word to a lot, especially enterprise shippers, because they have to rely on so much capacity. They have to tap in a little bit to these brokers because of the way the industry is set up, because the vast majority of the trucks on the road are, small mom and pop fleets that rely on brokers as their sales team or their admin, and the true meaning of what a broker's supposed to bring to the table, right? So, if you ask me what a broker actually is, it's an extension of all these carriers as their sales team. Maybe they're not good at sales. Maybe they don't have the means to put a sales force to help me go source directly with the customer. We'll lean on a broker and we kind of become that extension, because I do the exact same thing what you're asking. So as a shipper, you're asking for relationship, communication. That's exactly what we're asking for from the carrier to work with us as a broker. We're telling them that you have to meet these expectations because we have to meet those expectations with the customer. And I think that's the true success of a true broker, and why you've had a little bit of success with a couple, because they are the 1%. They are the exception, because they build that relationship. They build that customer, even though you still come to the table and say, I'm going to put a lot of weight on the asset-based carriers, but when I need to tap into it, they're there for me. So, it's kind of a tricky conversation.
You're right. You mentioned something. So in 2020, you're right. That became a tricky conversation because people saw the money. People saw that there was a lot coming in when all these loads started, and we needed to fill shelves and we needed to do everything. 2020 was phenomenal for drivers, for companies, for all that. Um, but with that being said, because of 2020 being the way it was, brokers and trucking companies were able to just drop loads like this because they didn't pay enough. If you want to describe a shipper in any zodiac sign, it's going to be a Scorpio. They will forgive you, but they'll never forget what you did. So, um, a shipper will always remember the carrier that did that during a time of need, during a time of you had rates on board and you didn't service it. And we remember that. And I'm like that now, and so is everybody else because it makes sense. And brokers were the first ones to do that. So it's very good that a broker, when you have those new brokers coming in and they literally spend time with you. And they're not trying to sell themselves, but they're saying, give me one lane. Let me just prove it to you. And I will show you the communication from the pickup to this is where it is to it's at the consignee. Now it's delivered. And then they'll notice that and you'll start getting more and more and more. And then you become a very reliable person, a very reliable carrier. And as long as you have somebody that has passion in the business as much as the people who are wanting that freight delivered, you'll be good. You'll be okay. But you have to have that passion too. You as an owner,
I
of
love how
course
you
you do.
put that.
Yeah, you as an owner,
Yeah.
of course you have the passion, but do your people. Now you as an owner have to put that into your people that you hired. How are they passionate about your business? How are you going to make them passionate about that one load that needs to be delivered? That's how it has to be handled.
That's why it's all about the culture, the people you bring
Business
in. You
101.
can bring
Yeah.
in it really is, and I think I've referenced this before, and I think there's a lot of people that view this, but it's, Steve Jobs and Brent, that they talk about take care of your people and they take care of your customers, right? And I truly believe that. And I think as a broker, it's even a little bit deeper than that, because for a broker to effectively do what they do, they also has to rely on a stranger, if you will, and I'll debunk that here in a minute, but a carrier that they may or may not ever set face to face with, that is some random guy that just is looking for some work to go be the face of your business, then in hopes to take care of you, the shipper, in hopes to take care of the customer. That's a really interesting dynamic when you think about
It is.
a culture and taking care of your customer, because you're putting this outside party in that you really have no clue who they are and what kind of culture they bring to the table.
Right. And I can debunk that for you too. I bet you anything you've actually met the shipper, right? And that's what you're going to debunk because yeah. So I'm on the shipper side, and the broker that I work with now, I told him, "Who is this carrier? You set up this carrier. I want to meet him. Put a meeting, all of us together." Because thank you, because it makes my numbers look good, especially when all I do now is work with numbers. It makes me look good. So let's meet. Yeah. So maybe it was you.
Well, I tell you, I think in a perfect world, one thing I think, and I'll kind of get bold here and say that needs to change in the industry of just the broker, what needs to change is how we approach these carriers. Broker boards and just soliciting through a broker board is fine. It's needed in some cases, right? There's a true spot market type freight that, I don't even know I'm having it. It's not a consistent lane. I just need somebody today type mentality. But in addition to that, when there are brokers out there that, that cradle to grave model where you're going to put one person in a seat to handle it from the second you get the shipment all the way to the end. I'm not a big fan of that, right? And I think that's something that has to change in our industry with a broker, because if you take one person responsible for the shipment, he has to play two sides. I have to make sure the customer's getting everything that they want. I have to make sure the carrier's getting everything that they want. And it's kind of hard to put on. Well, and let me add the third. Obviously, the broker needs to make some type of profit to cover their costs and overhead. So you have this guy or person sitting in the middle trying to make everybody happy. But if you take that model and you go a little bit deeper, which adds a little bit of cost, but everybody wins, is you have a person responsible for the customer, making sure that they're an advocate between what they need and what their expectations are and the broker. And then you have a person that's responsible for the carrier to be an advocate, to make sure they have everything that they need to be successful back to the broker. At the end, the consumer, the end user wins. And that's kind of the attitude of making sure everybody's taken care of. There's going to be times where you go to the shipper and say, Jimmy, I can do this for $2,000. And then you go out to your carrier and they're like, well, no, we can only do it for 22 or 23. Well, me, when you talk about culture and integrity and relationship, it's not the customer. It's not you, Jim. It's not your fault that I came to you and say I can do it for $2,000, right? It was me coming to you. In those cases, I'm sometimes even going to eat that rate. But if you have a good relationship, sometimes you can go back and say, hey, we misquoted this a little bit. Do you have room? No, I don't on this one. Okay, well, we're still going to honor what we said we're going to honor. And we're going to put that on there and we call everything good. And then maybe on the next one, you help us out. But it goes back to that relationship on both parties, that you have somebody responsible for the carrier, somebody responsible for the customer. And it makes it where nobody's middlemaning anything, to make it where you and your customer ultimately wins. Because if you look back, that's the only reason we're all getting paid. And
Right.
that's the one that needs to have success.
You said the biggest thing that I absolutely can't stand when I'm talking to somebody. Cradle to grave. Hate it. When I go speak to a carrier or a broker and they tell me cradle to grave, it reminds me of somebody who has like split personalities and knows how to deal with a trucking company versus a customer. Dealing with a trucking company and a customer are two different personalities. So if you find somebody who has those split personalities, they're a psychopath. They belong in trucking, but it's rare when you
Right.
find them. So, which is why I am where I am, because I am a psychopath. But besides that, no, you know, you need to separate that. And what brokers really need to do is focus on the customer and the carrier. Once they focus on both and take them both where they need to be and really find people that care about that part of the business, both of them will streamline together. And then you need somebody at the end who says the load's been delivered, and that's their whole job, is to tell the customer it's been delivered. Thank you very much. Is there anything else we can help you with? That's customer service.
And that brings up something else, Jimmy, that maybe I'm forward thinking a little bit here, but why brokers should lean on technology more than even asset-based companies. Because, I mean, with the technology that we have today that can tap into and track and trace with geofencing all the way down to, I am at the shipper and it tells you automatically. I think that's where that little bit of that transparency and transportation is going to implement itself without even brokers buying into it, because of the fact that technology is outpacing the industry, right? Transportation has been behind the times when it comes to technology, but being able to give that information to the customer to say exactly where my truck is at any given moment based on, we have every truck is required to have an ELD. So they're already tracking the truck anyway. They might have a third party like MacroPoint or an internal app for whatever TMS system you're using. For like us, we have an app in our side, our TMS system, that we give to the truck. So we know exactly where they are. It updates the system. Like leaning on that technology, it's kind of like that put up or shut up. Like if you want to know, I can do it without even saying a word to you because of the technology live in the person physically handling your shipment. So when you talk about that communication, I feel like that's the easy button right now.
So right now with the companies such as brokers, there's a ton of brokers out there, because we're talking about brokers, because the brokers don't have that technology that can show everybody everything. You have to be that big communication piece. You have to step back into the early 2090s and 80s and say, this is what's happening every step of the way. If you don't, those companies with the technology beat you all day long. So I have gone through several big events that have recently happened in the supply chain world. And if the way it's looking, if you're not jumping on the technology, you're not keeping up, and you're going to fall apart from it, because People don't want to have 100 emails a day anymore, 500 emails a day anymore. They want to be able to go into that app, see exactly what's happening with so and so, and then their emails are only until to the most important things. That's another part of what are these trucking companies plus brokers doing to tap into the APIs of these customers. And the customers with the APIs, they have big APIs. They have the money to do it. What are you doing to get into it?
Do you feel that's just over time, organically, the level of customer service, the satisfaction from the customer side is increasing because of, everything is at a click of a button. Everything is at the palm of your hand in this phone. I can look exactly what the inventory levels are at certain customers. Pre-COVID, Amazon was saying you order something and it's going to be there very fast. In the DFW market, you still can order something and it be at your doorstep by 8, 9 o'clock that night. So what's happening is I think it's training everybody to have kind of a different level of what that customer service satisfaction looks like. Do you think that's now transitioning into LTL, full truckload, just because of what they do at home, that level of satisfaction that I want it right now. I want to know exactly what's going on. And it's starting to go from mode to mode.
Yeah, it's the Amazon expectation. Why do you think Amazon succeeded? Because of the expectation. We said we will deliver, we did. So now, what is every other customer trying to do? How are we going to succeed like Amazon did? Segue a little bit into that is FedEx and UPS and everybody is trying to figure out how the freak did Amazon do that we can make that happen. So they've tapped into that we can do the 3-day delivery type thing, right? And that's awesome. Which great, FedEx is great. We all know that it can deliver great, and so can UPS. But then you have other carriers now, such as a company called ClearJet, that is totally going to interrupt it all. And now they're doing the same Amazon thing. They're doing the whole fly, deliver 2-day model for all customers, not just Amazon customers, because Amazon is their only realm. Now it's tapping into every customer, the H&Ms and all that stuff. So now all these trucking companies have to figure out, okay, we have to also be great at the first mile and the last mile part of every delivery as well for all these customers. I mean, there's a whole big aspect on this.
Yeah. And I love it because, with ClearJet kind of given that opportunity to these small to medium size that says, I can't do, how am I, in their mind, how am I supposed to compete with that? I can't put a fleet inside a DFW that I can go pick up from a warehouse and get it to somebody in 6 to 8 hours. I don't have the means or I'm just not that size. So companies like that, allowing them to tap into, and I love it. I can't wait to see when when those type of customers are competing with the big dogs. And I'm looking forward to what happens in 3 to 5 years. Does the medium to small businesses come back? Does it allow them a little bit bigger backbone to say, you know what, I can compete with you because I have I can tap into a company like ClearJet to help me. I can tap into, different modes or different means to be able to put me on the same playing field as you, even though you're doing it in-house.
So you and I took a different realm, obviously. Now we're talking about the customers, like those, like if your wife were to come up with a small to medium clothing company or something, that's where ClearJet will help, and we can fly your stuff from end to end and get it delivered 2 days. We literally guarantee it, right? Now we're in another realm of this talk, but there's new people that are in this business. There's new companies that we talk about, trucking companies, which it's still the same business that we're talking about, but you're talking about trucking companies that are in the final mile business and in the first mile business that are still in it, that are being very successful because they are not UPS or FedEx or Amazon. They are delivering for ClearJet to get all these parcels out within 2 days to a customer's house. Makes
I
sense.
see. Yeah, I got you. I
Hmm.
gotcha. And so with that model and everything needing to be done faster, everything needing to be at my fingertips,
Yep.
is that is that
Amazon's fault. Blame them. Blame Amazon all day long.
do you feel that's why you heavily lean on an asset because they tend to have that better communication?
I think maybe I tend to lean heavily on an aspect for the fact of I'm not paying a third party to do what I need. And if my asset carrier can do what I need and I can speak to them directly, I am okay with that. I it's the I think, and I can say this for a lot of people, it's the uncomfortableness of not being able to have control of those types of situations. Some people are okay with not caring. They're just like, go ahead, do what you need to do. I am looking at the money aspect and taking that control. I need to know where A, B, C, D, E is at.
So is that coming in from a little bit of like you taking care of the blue collar too to make sure they're getting everything that they are and not just some middleman taking the money and running? So how is a
Are
shipper
you my
vet?
psychologist? Just kidding.
I'm just here. I'm going to be fully transparent here. I agree with you. And that's hard to say, right? Because I currently work for a broker that has an asset-based company and I may come from a blue-collar family that the driver should get every penny that they're worth. And I'm just being honest. And this is me coming sitting in a broker seat. Like I do not disagree with you. Now, the hard part is when you sit down with somebody like yourself that says eliminate the broker and or let me rephrase that, the broker's the last choice, never the first choice. I want to be able to sit here in the seat that I am and say, but I want to do what you're asking for, but maybe better, but tap into these carriers that don't have the means to be a 50, 100, 200 fleet because they don't understand the sales side. They don't have the right network. They just want to go work for themselves because I'm retired and I don't want to work for the man. So I'm just kind of trying to understand
Where I come
where
from.
can the yeah. But with the attitude of the driver still wins and he can use a broker because that's my ultimate goal at the end of the day because I do not disagree with you. The term broker in the freight industry has a bad taste in most people's mouth. And when I first started working with Robert and we talked about our vision and our intent and our means and how we're going to get there, I remember saying, man, being a small broker, a startup, if you will, how are we going to change the industry? We're in my attitude back then was we're not. You go do what you're good at, stay true to yourself, and it's going to work itself out. But then I kind of doubled down on that. It's like, you know what? No, I'm not just going to continue to keep doing what we're doing. I want to talk to people and get the actual truth of what's going on and then voice my opinion because it is an opinion on how I feel like it should work because I want the term broker to be not a bad taste in people's mouth. I do want the driver to win first. And I want to, be an extension of what they have every day. But at the end, we said it already, the only person that wins in all this is the end user because they're the one paying for everybody, right? Somebody ordered something that shipped from the shipper, that's hauled by a carrier, that's middleman by a broker. There's a lot of hands in the pot.
There's so many hands in the pot. And you said something that I'm like, yes. So number one, you became my psychologist in the transportation business just now. So why do I not choose a broker? But also why I would choose a broker and why I think that there are people that do deserve to be out there and be heard. But I have such a huge passion, and maybe I'm a one off person, but I have such a huge passion for drivers because I was with them for 7 years. I literally sat in a truck with my drivers to go from El Paso, Texas, all the way to Washington in the winter with them just to see what they went through. I chained up tires, I slept cold, I slept in their bed, I ate what they ate. I said, "You don't treat me. I want you." I was a terminal manager. Don't treat me. Do what you do. Show me. because I
Give me
want
the
to
full
live.
experience.
Yeah, give me the experience. So I know and I could be humbled by it and understand that I'm sleeping in my bed and you're in yours. And I want to know what it is. I also went with a driver from El Paso to Phoenix in the summer. Can I say fuck that? When all these people talk about, oh, you're idling your truck too much in the summer, but you're in Phoenix, Arizona. Oh, go inside and stay inside while they're working on your truck or working on your load. But there's nowhere to stay. So they're like, chill in the truck with your windows down. No, I had to understand all that. So now that I understand what a driver has been through, it humbles me to know that you talked about it, the blue collar. I want them to have everything come back to them. And if they go to a broker and they're like, just dispatch me out, fantastic. But that broker needs to have that passion for that person that's working for their own business. And I say it to all brokers: understand your drivers, understand the companies you're working for, and don't do it for the money. Do it because you actually care to help these people get a load and make money themselves. Because if the driver's not making money, the company's not making money. And if the driver's not getting home, the driver's unhappy, he's freaking leaving, your company's not there. So understand that a broker, you're making money because he drove for you. And that's my passion. That's it. I flipped my table. I'm going to go buy a trucking company and hire everybody. Just kidding.
I love what you just said because, and I won't get in the weeds of my past, but I have some very similar experiences as you do. When I first started in night dispatch forever ago, I went and spent a week in the truck with a driver. Matter of fact, me and that guy still friends today. We call each other probably 4 or 5 times a year, wish each other happy birthday. We've sent Christmas gifts, and I think it's a lost art to be able to put people in our industry in those experiences, because it is a lifestyle that if you haven't ever been in that lifestyle, you can't ever understand it. People can try to tell you stories and give you their side, but you will never understand until exactly what you said. A guy sitting behind the desk looking at costs saying, don't idle your truck, and a guy in Phoenix, Arizona, 99.9% of the time, they're going to tell you, I'm going to sit in the truck idling because it's hot and I need this APU working. I need to make sure that it's cold in here.
Yeah, but guess what happens with that? They don't get their idle bonus because
That's
they
right. It's money driven again.
so it's money driven again. And that's where I come in and say, you're ridiculous. Again, I got to own a trucking company. I want every driver to drive with me.
Yeah. Well, see here, and I'm going to drop a small bombshell here. This is why, as a broker, I enjoy working with the mom and pops a little bit more than the bigger fleets. I love working with the big fleets too, because they give me better capacity. They allow me to drop trailers. I couldn't do my job without them. But that one guy that's riding with his wife that wants to work under his own authority and not work for the man and be his own boss, and he wants to take a day off in the middle of Phoenix, Arizona to go see where the meteor hit, that's the guy I'm working for, right? You're working and moving the world of logistics because you enjoy it. I want you to get everything you want, and you can't do that without a broker because he don't have a sales team. He doesn't have the admin side. So the term broker, it hurts me inside knowing that it has a bad name, because if we did what we're supposed to do, if we communicate like you're supposed to, because there's going to be the flip side of that too, right? You're going to get customers that need 50 to 80 trucks on this lane, whatever, and that one mom and pop is not going to be able to get it done for you. But if you can give everybody what they want, that's when you're successful. That's when it's sustainable. And you said something earlier, and I wanted to go back and I kind of forgot, but I just remembered. You were talking about your time at PepsiCo, how when you were in Texas, you had these different carriers that hauled these different lanes because that's what they were good at. And then you had that one broker that you leaned on at what they were good at. I wish brokers would change that mindset a little bit, because yes, brokers can run the 48 states. I can get a truck to haul something for you at any point in the United States. But is that what I'm good at? No, right now for me, Our brokering firm is good at intra-Texas, anything within the states that touch it, flatbed, heavy haul, end dump. That's our niche. That's what we're great at. If you call me, I can probably beat everybody at that. But if you ask me right now, you need something from Billings, Montana to somewhere in Wyoming, reefer, could I get it? Yes, but that's not what I'm good at. So I wish sometimes brokers would also sit back and just say, I would love to do that for you. I will go look at it, but it's not what I'm good at. This is what I'm good at. Maybe it'd be best fit for somebody else, because it goes back to what you said earlier. It's that relationship, it's that culture, it's that transparency, and it's not just chasing a buck because you can make a little bit of money off of a reefer load going from, Montana to Wyoming.
Well, I'll tell you, also in my vetting process of doing things, and I have a broker in there, and they tell me that they want this, and this lane when it becomes bidding process. And then you start talking to all the carriers. I literally ask all my carriers, show me that you're good at that lane. Show me that you've done this lane before. I want to see it. Because for a fact, I know you're bidding on it because you're trying to win it. You're trying to get a carrier, and there are drivers in there. You're trying to do this. And I've been there. I've been on that side. Now I know how to look for it. So if you actually can do it and you have the proof, then you bid on it and show the proof. Send it. Look, this is a great lane for me. I have all this. I have these assets. Be communicative about it.
That brings up another point too, where, there's a spot market, and some brokers only want to live in the spot market. They want to go get that transactional business, that cradle to grave model we talked about earlier, that I'm going to get one-offs here and there. I'm going to put it out to bid, and I'm going to get carriers. And that's my business model, cradle to grave. Then there's some that want just committed freight, right? I'm going to go out and I'm going to strategically place capacity in the right lanes to be able to win 1 to 5 loads a week going in this lane like clockwork. So there's a place on both sides, but I want to also argue the fact that as a broker needs to change is you've got to get a better relationship with the carriers, because what you just talked about, are you good at this lane? I can tell you yes, but at the end of the day, guess who has to be good at the lane? The driver, the carrier, right?
Yes.
So I can sit here and say, yeah, I've done this lane 100 times in the last 3 months with 100 different carriers.
With
Well,
100
does
carriers. That's why.
does that
Show me.
count?
No.
And it probably should be no, it doesn't count, right? So I could sit here, but back to your point, and one thing I'm really glad you said is, as a broker, we have to do a better job of having that relationship, in-depth conversation with carriers that come back and say, this is a lane that I want to do. And then I come to you as a customer and say, this is why I'm bidding on the lane, because this carrier is giving us dedicated capacity this amount of times a week. And here's the proof proof is in the pudding.
Proof.
So
Yes. And as a broker, you'll go a much longer way with that. And to go into that, brokers and carriers all together love to write these lengthy emails. This is what I do. This is who I am, blah, blah, blah. Nobody reads them.
Look at me.
Yeah, look at me. Nobody reads them, these 5 pages things. They'll skim, nap, cool. So, and the thing is that this business, the baby boomers have died in it, right? We're done. The baby boomers raised us in it. We're done. Now it's the millennials. Do millennials read emails? Nope, we don't. But do we live on emails? Yes, we do. But we only live when it's like this, not the whole reading thing. So when Jimie is going through 1,000 lanes at PepsiCo and has to go through thousands of carriers, I will, though, look at the carrier that sent a packet that said, this is my proof, this is what I'm doing, because I want to see where you compare, because I actually do care about that part. Because if I give this person this lane, I know we hate talking about money, but at the end of the day, money is about it, is that my people get a big bonus too, if this lane is successful, right? So if you give me all the proof in the world that you are what you are, I will give you a chance.
That's great. That's great advice. So let's, if it's okay, I want to ask this kind of bluntly. So when you're sitting at PepsiCo and let's just argue you have every provider and every carrier staring you in the face and saying, choose me, choose me, choose me. Here's my pretty email. Here's my proof and all that stuff. What, how does a person new in the industry, and I don't even want to say broker, I'm going to say carrier, new to a customer, how do they get their chance? How do they, in your eyes, what sets them apart? Because if I just send you a packet, but you still don't know who I am, and you have 10 other packets, how does somebody get to your desk and say, listen, I'm a little bit confident, I'm the best at what we do, I want a chance, but not coming over too confident that says, I'm not going to give this guy an opportunity? Because, right now it's so saturated, it gives a bad taste in the shipper's mouth that it's just another person standing on the corner asking for his opportunity. But if you're trying to do stuff different, if you're trying to redefine what a broker is, how do we get a chance to sit at the table and just ask for a spot on the bench, even not an opportunity today? That's $1 million question.
That's $1 million question. Never be in the bidding process. Never. You're new. They don't know you. No. Second, don't write emails and don't bug and call. Don't. Third, you have to know why you're different. Don't go up to a carrier and tell them, I have 99% service. I have the best customer service. I have 24 service. I have overseas service. I have so many assets. I have this, and that. I have that. Everybody says it. What makes you different is that you come in humbly and you say, give me one chance, give me one lane, just one. Just let me work it and make me a backup carrier for somebody. And I will show you that I will execute it every single time that I do it. And every single time I do it, I'm going to call you at that point. I'm going to email you and I'm going to show you that I did this lane and I did it. And then from there, you and me will talk about the future lanes. I just gave you some insight because that's exactly how it's done.
I'm going to add a wrinkle to it because this is 100% part of my selling strategy. Is I also ask for the absolute hardest lane that you have, because if you give me the easiest, right, everybody can do the easiest lane. I say that. There's some people that still can't do the easiest lane, but arguably everybody can do the easiest lane. So what I used to do is sit down and say, look, I'm not asking for business. I'm asking to earn a position on your team. I just want a spot on the bench. And if you're willing to give me an opportunity on the hardest lane that you have, I might fail, but I am confident that I'm going to fail better than everybody else. But at the same time, if I don't fail and I am successful, then can we have a deeper conversation about some of your other lanes?
Which is good. Agree with that. Do that. And you can, and you'll be successful in that. I would be like, okay, let's do this. I would definitely do that. I am also okay with somebody to say, if you're like, hey, say we're in Texas. Hey, make me the backup carrier for so and so on this lane. I guarantee I will always, if you need me within 1 hour, I'll be there because I've had a carrier do that. I will be there. And they're there and they execute it each time and they send me emails and they do this and they do that. Great. Do it. Dare you.
They're going to rise to the occasion.
Yeah. And if you do it, I dare you, because next bidding season, guess who's coming up?
Yeah. And one thing too I like about that, and this is a little bit of sales insight from my perspective, that's a long sales cycle, right? You give me one lane, one opportunity, and I don't bid again for a year. That's a long wait of impatience. But at the same time, we're talking about sustainability. If you win it fast, most of the time you're going to lose it fast. If you win it over time, you're going to lose. If you are going to lose it, it's going to take a while because it's sustainable. Is that fair to say that's kind of how it works?
When that start happening, so for instance, me, like when that does start happening and that carrier is actually, they're doing good, I will, because during the year, a carrier will fail and they fall off.
Oh, okay.
And you're rebidding. So then I go ask, hey, you've been successful here. Do you want this? But can you do it? And if you can do it, I'll give it to you. And this is your moment. And that's what I always say. This is your moment. Take it. And I will help support it. Okay. They take it and then they come on and then they start. That's where it goes from there. And
if you're real good, you get contagious.
Yes. And it gets contagious. And even though the bid process happens every year and all those carriers win, doesn't mean those carriers stay the next month. The carriers can fall off certain lanes every single month. I am a very big person on customer delivery, that I start getting rid of carriers fast. Because if you're not delivering the promise that you told me and you're not in communication with me, I'm done. I will find somebody who is there.
You tell me you're going to do something and you don't. It's a relationship. So next.
Yeah.
So swipe next up. I appreciate that.
Tinder
Yeah,
for drivers.
exactly.
Just kidding.
That's right. I just appreciate the fact that you're willing to have these conversations about why you're leaning heavy on assets, why you lean away from brokers. And I just selfishly hope over time that the broker can get a different name. And right now it's still saturated. Right now it's still a lot of people chasing the dollar. And that's super unfortunate. It really is super unfortunate because we're also in a very volatile environment in the trucking industry right now. It's these drivers, we talk about those blue collars again. They're just, man, it's expensive to live out there as well. And they're just not making ends meet. And you have people that's in it for the dollar. So at the end of the day, they're not passing it on to the driver. And it's
Right.
super, super unfortunate.
And it's important to me. You have, and not going into politics, but you have inflation, you have their gas, you have their taxes, you have their insurance. Do you know what it means to own that truck and that's their house? No. And then they have a family at home plus that house. It means a lot. So shame on people who are coming into this industry thinking they can earn a dollar off these people who are driving for them. And shame on those people who are tech people thinking they can create a system to earn a dollar off the people who are driving for them. I am done with that statement. But again, I have a passion for drivers.
I'll tell you this, that we need more people, and I'm challenging everyone that's listening. We need more people to have passion for the driver, because the shipper can't get it done without the driver. The broker can't get it done without the driver. The end consumer can't get their product without the driver. Everything we touch, everything we do, everything we sit on, everything we eat touches the transportation industry. And I have so much respect for those people. It used to be considered a professional career. Now it's looked down upon. And I hope that my little bitty platform here can help change that. And I have some drivers that are good friends of mine. And we were challenged a week or so ago to take this to the next level and make a driver only podcast, to be able to kind of start digging into the deep weeds of what it is to be a driver. And we're in the process of doing that right now. Like, we want to go ahead and keep this platform and do what we're doing from a customer and a sales perspective, but at the same
From a
time,
high level perspective.
we want to double down on the driver's side. And we have a little sneak peek of a show we have coming up. We have some of those companies that are coming up, that's because drivers don't even have a place to park at night, right? These truck stops, there's not enough places. They're parking on the side of the road. And then they're getting tickets, and they're getting state troopers come by and say, move your truck, and they have to start their time over. You have these companies that are starting to pop up, like, truck parking spots that you can, rent and save spots. So I'm really looking forward to that show too, just to try to get a better understanding of the why behind that and what we're trying to do as an industry to help these guys out. So I'm really, really looking forward to that.
I love that. You go the trucking route. I would love to just talk to them and just say, hey, thank you. Because you're right. They are amazing, amazing people. And if you just talk to the majority of them, gosh, they are phenomenal people, and they have a story, and their stories are awesome.
And I can't wait to ask the question that I asked you on why some of these guys use brokers, and why get their perspective on why they don't get their own sales team, and why they don't have an admin, and how they can't source capacity, because I would love to help change that mindset with them as well, to make it where they have more leverage.
It's easy. I've asked, and it's easy. It's easy because they don't have to deal with the cost and all that.
And I love that. But at the same time, know your worth and negotiate hard. That may be the thing that's missing, is they kind of think that they have to accept it. negotiate, know your worth, and your cost is going to be different than the guy sitting next to you. Understand it and go negotiate it. The guy that has 50 trucks is going to have a higher cost than the guy that has 2 trucks. He has to worry about training and safe. It is what it is. So know your worth, negotiate hard, and get what you need so you can be successful, because no one can do it. No one can do it without a driver. So.
All right, Chris, let's create a business. Let's go for truck drivers.
That's right. That's right. Well, Jimie, listen, we could probably sit here and talk for 2 more hours. I definitely want to invite you back for another show very, very soon, especially if we get the driver side going. I'd love to have a panel and have drivers, shippers, brokers, and everybody, and just continuing to dig deep into our industry and the why behind a lot of stuff. And at the end of the day, hopefully what we do helps change a little bit, kind of what's going on in our industry, and get that passion back in people's eyes of what they do for the carrier. So thank you so much for joining us. And I really do look forward to speaking with you again in the future. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of That Trucking Gospel. We release new shows every Tuesday on multiple platforms. So if you have any comments or feedback, let us know what you'd like to talk about next. Thanks again for enjoying our show.